My guest today is a controversial crusader for social change. She wants to reduce the number of children born to drug-abusing parents. Few could quarrel with that. But Barbara Harris's method, offering cash to addicts prepared to accept sterilization or long-term contraception, has raised a storm of criticism, first in the US and now in the UK. Is Barbara Harris's Project Prevention little more than eugenics, dressed up in a cloak of compassion? Barbara Harris, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Your mission for the last 20 years and more seems to have been to stop certain people having children. Why?
It's actually been 10 years, and well, it started because my husband and I adopted 4 of 8 drug-exposed infants born to a Los Angeles drug addict. And watching them come home and go through withdrawals and seeing how they suffered, it angered me. At first, it angered me at the birth parents because I thought, how dare they do this? And then my anger became at the system that allows them to do that. Just drop off a baby at their local hospital yearly, and in some cases twice yearly when the babies are born premature, and then just walk away with no consequences. So it angered me, and I tried to get legislation passed, first of all, to make it mandatory that they had to use long-term birth control. And when that didn't work, I decided that at that point I had 2 options. One was nothing, and that wasn't an option for me. So I just talked to a law professor that I knew, asked if I could pay drug addicts to be responsible and use birth control. And when he told me I could, then that's what we did.
Your stance, according to Lynn Paltrow, who is the Executive Director of the National Advocates for Pregnant Women, is not worthy, suggests rather that there is a portion of the population that is not worthy of reproducing. Is that a fair summation of how you feel about a certain sector of society?
She uses the word worthy, and I use the word responsible. There's a certain portion of society that are not responsible enough to reproduce, which is why they should be on birth control until they are.
Not enough. So you define, or somebody has to define, that these people are not responsible enough, and they therefore have no right to reproduce.
Not while they're using drugs and alcohol.
Of it. You offer cash, a cash incentive. It began, I think, at $200, but now in the US it's $300 for any, and it's mostly women, any woman in particular who is prepared to either undertake sterilization or long-term contraception. That's a bribe, basically.
You can call it what you want.
You'd accept that word?
I'll accept it.
And is it ethical to offer people, let's remember, who are some of the poorest and most vulnerable members of society, because by your definition they are abusing drugs, is it ethical to dangle hundreds of dollars in front of their noses saying, if you do what we want you to do, you can have this cash straight away?
There's nothing moral or ethical about giving birth to 21 drug-addicted babies. I mean, it just depends on...
Well, you keep coming back to that figure, but obviously that is highly unusual. The fact is, most of the women...
Let's say 2. Is there anything moral or ethical about giving birth to 2 drug-addicted babies who end up in foster care, grow up and moving from home to home, never feel loved, at age 18 become homeless? What is the moral or ethical part of that?
Where's the compassion in your approach? You told the Independent newspaper a little while ago, you said, some people might spend the money that we give them on drugs, and as far as I'm concerned, they're welcome to.
That's their choice. That's a choice they made. They made a choice to decide to become a drug addict, to choose drugs, to use drugs, but the baby doesn't have a choice. The baby didn't choose that. You
don't, in essence, care about the woman who is on drugs at all.
She's going to use drugs with or without our $300. She may not rob somebody that day. She may not steal from somebody. She may not prostitute. She's going to get money to use drugs with or without our money. Our money doesn't turn her into a drug addict. It may enable her to buy some drugs, but like I said, that is her choice. She's grown, and it's her choice. The child has no choice.
There are a lot of ethicists and doctors who are deeply opposed to what you do, and one of the points they make is that it is the cash element that is really toxic in what you're doing. To quote one, Judith Scully, she says, consent by cash coercion does not and cannot constitute voluntary informed consent. Why not just take the cash out of this equation? There are ways in which you could help people, point them towards free contraception or maybe even free sterilization, but you insist on putting a cash bribe in
We already
there.
have free birth control. They can walk into a clinic and get free birth control anytime they want. They're not doing that. They don't want to take the time out of their lives getting high, finding drugs, prostituting to get money to buy drugs. They don't have the time to do that. So the money gets their attention, keeps them focused long enough to do what they know they do anyway, and enables them to follow through because they know that they will get the money. It is the money that is working. Without the money, we have the same thing that we already have, which is nothing.